What if that thing that finally supports your art isn't actually the art itself? In today's episode, we're visiting with Cara Klinger as she talks about the side hustle that kept her dreams alive and how it might inspire you to yours. Welcome back to Like-Minded Arts. I'm trying to help you not just be a struggling artist, but become a working creative. Today, I want to talk about when passions meet the bills. I've got with me Cara Klinger. She's a writer, but for the longest time, she needed money, not just words on a page. And like so many creatives, she found herself struggling, surviving jobs while trying to keep her artistic identity alive. Let's jump into the moment when she realized she couldn't wait on publishing anymore.
I don't have luxury years to waste anymore. I mean, I'm only 57, but when you're talking a decade of nothingness, it's just, I went south for what I eventually did publish, and I have no regrets.
I don't know about you, but that line hits pretty hard. I don't have luxury years to waste anymore. And that's the truth for most creatives. You can't put your entire financial future on the hope that one day art will pay off.
So it happened out of necessity. Writing books on the side and not getting any sales, I had to be doing something else. So I was always working. I cleaned people's houses for 20 years to make money. I wanted to be available when my kids were home. So if it was summer break, well, they were going to clean houses with me, which that could be a whole nother podcast about the adventures of my children while I was trying to clean somebody's house. So at that point in my life, I had started dabbling in resale as a way to make money. We had a big move. We moved 4 hours across the state, started new jobs. And after 20 years of cleaning houses, I was tired. I said, I don't want to clean people's houses anymore. And so I had started doing things like I worked on the playground at school to make extra money. And one of the things that I started to do just out of curiosity more than anything was buying and selling. eBay was brand new. And, I could go to an auction and pick up the things that nobody wanted, cheap, a couple bucks, whatever, and see what happened. I hit it enough times that I'm like, this is kind of fun, but I was still only dabbling in it, and then I got divorced and I was still raising my last child. She was a teenager. I did not want to quit yet on this mission I had to be present for my kids. I didn't want to go get the 9-to-5 job and have my daughter come home to an empty house. So it's like, what am I going to do? I can't just work on the playground. And so I made the decision to go resale full time. Let's see what happens. I couldn't really write anymore. I did eventually sell a magazine article just shortly before that it was to a horse publication. That's another story. But anyway, I did finally have a publishing credit, which is really crucial in the traditional publishing world. That's what they want to see. That's a big reason why they turn you down, because you don't have any publication credits. So I finally had this publication credit, but I didn't have the time to really explore it, to start writing again and writing to editors and say, hey, look, I have a credit. I had to work.
Cara did what a lot of artists do. She worked whatever job she needed to keep her family afloat.
And so one of the things that I eventually landed upon that nobody wanted in an auction was fabric. It was boxes and boxes of fabric in the backyard of a woman who had passed away, and she had been an avid sewer, quilter, crafter, whatever. I guess it's a sewist. I never could figure out why they said sewist and not sewer. I don't know. Maybe because sewer spelled out also says sewer, but I just could never figure that out.
Is that different from a seamstress or a seam? What would we call that?
A seamstress typically makes clothes. A quilter typically makes quilts. Somebody who just sews in general is called a sewist. And I always wanted to call it a sewer, but it's not correct. It's sewist. Because I sew. I don't make clothing. I can make quilts. I can do upholstery. But I don't consider myself not a seamstress. Anyway. So I just started to dabble in fabric, and it grew. It was weird. I was all on eBay initially, and I had started to get a lot of fabric people that were buying from Japan and Australia and all over the world. Shipping was cheaper. back then. It got to the point where I had a relatively large inventory of fabric, but it was so mixed in with all of the other things that I was selling that it wasn't making enough of a statement. I wanted it to be its own thing. And so that's when I moved the fabric over to Etsy, and I opened an entirely different shop that was only vintage fabric, estate fabric, textiles. And that's when my following really, really started to grow. So that's how I ended up in resale.
This is the part people don't glamorize, the grind, the sacrifice, the willingness to do unglamorous work so you keep your creative spark alive. Now, is that called Dodd Oddity? Is that right?
Yes, that's the name of my shop on Etsy. And it's
I
named
think my
after
wife's
my
actually
grandfather.
bought from you before, and that was before I ever even knew who you were.
Oh, that's
Because I
outstanding.
remember that name. That's a very distinctive name.
You're in Utah, right?
Yeah.
I actually have a number of regular customers that are in Utah. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge community. And when I landed on Etsy, the people in this community that create and craft and quilt, we're in a league all our own. You know, we're almost obsolete in a lot of places. You know, yes, there's a young generation that's up and coming and that are kind of getting into it, but I don't know, we're this core group of people. And they all came together and they really rallied around my shop. And, you know, I feel like when you're a storyteller, it doesn't just go away, it doesn't just leave you. And so the outlet that I had at the time, I was fascinated by where this fabric came from before I had it. There were fabulous tales about the auctioneers, because auctioneers can be really ridiculous. The competition was always kind of interesting. So it's like, you know what, this is gold. And I never considered myself a nonfiction writing, but writing these essays and little mini stories on my listings about where it came from and what happened, they started to like it. You know, they started to write to me and they're like, man, these are so good. I'm enjoying knowing where the fabric came from. That's such an interesting story. That's so funny. It's so this, it's so that. You really need to write a book. And so here I am after, you know, 30 some, almost 40 years of trying to be a writer, trying to find somebody that liked what I was writing. And now I had people telling me what to write and to write it. It was a complete flip, you know.
But then something unexpected happened. A curiosity turned into a side hustle. And that side hustle turned into a business. This is where the magic happened for Cara. It wasn't in a writing room, but an auction yard. Cara found a niche, a product people wanted, a market she understood, and most importantly, a way to make money without abandoning her creativity. When she moved her fabric shop to Etsy, everything changed. Here's the lesson. Your creativity doesn't have to stay in one lane. Cara used storytelling, the same skills she'd been honing for decades, to elevate her products, and people connected with it. They weren't just buying fabric, they were buying meaning. Cara didn't abandon her creativity, she redirected it. And that's the blueprint for financial security as an artist. At least for Cara it was. Maybe it is for you. Build income streams that support your art while you grow. In the next episode, we'll explore how Cara turned all of this into books, a brand, and a future she actually could control. If you want to find out more about Cara, check the link in the description. And also, if you want to catch the whole interview, go on over to my podcast at the Light-Minded Arts Podcast. There you can see the whole interview, not just the short snippets that I've shown you here. I'll see you next time.